Hello Internet, and welcome back to my reviews of Spider-Man's past on-screen outings, leading up to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Today we're going to talk about a movie that has fans the world over divided, and is often the target of memes galore, and is by far the weakest of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, Spider-Man 3. Before I get started on talking about Spider-Man 3, I know I said I was going to stop at The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but at the last second, I wanted to do these kinds of film reviews for Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Spider-Man Far From Home, and Spider-Man No Way Home, particularly in that order. However, I will not be reviewing Venom, Let There Be Carnage, or Morbius. I don't classify those as Spider-Man movies per se because they don't feature Spider-Man in any way, shape, or form. I know we see Tom Holland in the mid-credits scene of Venom, Let There Be Carnage, but that doesn't count. Venom and Venom, Let There Be Carnage, I enjoyed them. They were funny, goofy, and over the top. I feel like they would have benefited from an R rating. However, Morbius was just awful. But I wouldn't say 2015 Fantastic Four levels of awful. It was just absolutely awful. Now, back on to Spider-Man 3. After the success of Spider-Man 2, a sequel was greenlit. And thus, on May 4th, 2007, we got Spider-Man 3. For the longest time, I consider Spider-Man 3 to be my personal favorite entry in the Sam Raimi trilogy. But looking back, it was filled to the brim with flaws. I often relate to Peter, especially when he becomes corrupted by the alien symbiote that gives him a black Spider-Man suit, and you can clearly tell that it has affected him mentally, thus affecting those around him, like Mary Jane. One of the biggest flaws in Spider-Man 3 is the fact that there are too many damn villains. On one hand, we have Sandman, played by Thomas Hayden Church. On the other, we have Harry Osborn as the new Green Goblin. And lastly, we have Venom, played by Topher Grace. To be perfectly frank, I prefer Tom Hardy's portrayal of Eddie Brock in Venom over Topher Grace any day. Topher Grace is just whiny and wimpy, while Tom Hardy looks like he's having a total blast on screen. Eddie and Venom were two separate entities sharing a body, while Topher Grace was just corrupted by the symbiote and became an evil version of Spider-Man, so Tom Hardy wins by a fucking landslide. Spider-Man 3 starts off with Peter Parker living the perfect life as both Peter Parker and Spider-Man, even attending a musical starring Mary Jane, who he wants to propose to. The performance was to Peter's liking, and the people in the front row, but days later, her performance gets a poor review, and she's sacked from the play, and things quickly go downhill from there. Attending Dr. Connor's class alongside Peter is Gwen Stacy, played by Bryce Dallas Howard, who directed some of the best episodes of The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. She's the daughter of famed film director Ron Howard, and she starred in such films as Terminator Salvation, Twilight Eclipse, and the Jurassic World trilogy of films. To be frank, I prefer Emma Stone's portrayal of Gwen Stacy over Bryce Dallas Howard. Just like how I prefer Tom Hardy over Topher Grace. Gwen is dating Eddie Brock, who wants to be a photographer at the Daily Bugle, but he quickly becomes a bitter rival to Peter, kinda like the Shadow to Peter's Sonic. After getting out from the play, where Harry is extremely bitter against Peter now that he knows his ultimate secret, Peter and MJ embrace, as a meteorite lands near them, containing an alien symbiote. This gives Peter the black suit and fucks with his mental health. It also turns Eddie into Venom at the very end of the movie. Harry then takes the same performance-enhancing gas as Norman in the first movie, and takes his equipment so he can become the new Green Goblin. After visiting Aunt May, who encourages him to propose to MJ, Peter is ambushed by Harry, who reveals himself as the new Green Goblin to Peter. He tries explaining the truth to Harry, but he's just not having it, so they fight, and it results in Harry being rushed to the hospital and suffering from amnesia. Flint Marko was an escaped convict who escaped from prison just so he could see his wife and daughter, who was very sick. He then lives in a particle accelerator as the police are swarming in on his location. This particle accelerator causes his cells to fuse with the sand surrounding him, thus turning him into the Sandman. Thomas Hayden Church would then reprise his role as the Sandman in Spider-Man No Way Home. We then see a crane go out of control somewhere in the middle of the city, where Gwen happens to be, and thus Spider-Man swoops in to save her, which Andrew Garfield obviously didn't do. Sorry, too soon? Okay, let's move on. During a festival honoring Spider-Man for saving Gwen's life, he does the upside-down kiss with Gwen as a publicity stunt, thus pissing off Mary Jane. And after a brief fight with the Sandman, Peter goes to a French restaurant where Bruce Campbell is working as the maitre d', and he asks him to put the engagement ring in the bottom of a glass of champagne. This goes awry when Mary Jane becomes pissed off at Peter for kissing Gwen, and for her acting career to be in jeopardy thanks to the bad review. But Peter doesn't know that yet until later. Soon after, Peter and Aunt May go down to the police station where it's revealed that Flint Marko is the person who actually killed Uncle Ben, and Peter loses his shit. It's later that night where the symbiote fuses with Peter, thus giving him a black suit and enhancing his powers, while at the same time, it brings out the darker side of his personality, thus affecting his overall mental health. And This worries Mary Jane where she goes to see him after hearing about the news. This also worries the landlord after Peter lashes out at him saying that he'll get his rent when he fixes this damn door! But before that, he waits for Flint Marko to strike, and thus Eddie is there witnessing everything. And Spider-Man breaks his camera after saying, "See ya, chump." Eddie then pulls out another camera, takes fake photos, and publishes them to the Daily Bugle. The black suit brings out the darker side of Spider-Man when he attacks Sandman with all his fury, as well as opening a pipe that sprays water in his face and melts him down to mud. Peter then goes to Aunt May saying that Spider-Man killed Flint Marko, but she lectures him saying that revenge is like a poison. It can take you over. A lesson Tobey Maguire took to heart when Tom Holland was ready to kill the Green Goblin after killing his version of Aunt May. Peter's darker personality alienates him from Mary Jane, who goes to see Harry just to get her thoughts off of everything. They enjoy cooking an omelet, and they share a kiss, which Mary Jane then regrets. After she leaves, Harry's amnesia is cured by a vision of Norman, telling him to attack Spider-Man's heart. So as the new Green Goblin, Harry manipulates Mary Jane into breaking up with Peter, telling him that she's seeing another man, that other man being Harry, and then things get worse from there. Peter goes over to Harry's mansion where he pummels the shit out of him, then tossing a grenade in his face, thus disfiguring him. Peter's under the influence of the symbiote, and he spitefully claims that Harry was nothing but an embarrassment to Norman. "Look at little Goblin Jr. You gonna cry?" And then we get the subject of 1,000 Bully Maguire memes. Peter wearing a nice suit and doing a stupid dance out in public while the symbiote unleashes his ego. And this is after he exposes Eddie as a fraud and gets him fired from the Daily Bugle. Peter then takes Gwen out to a jazz club where Mary Jane is working. This is where this movie goes from serious to fucking ridiculous in 3 seconds flat. He does a dance with Gwen, all in an attempt to make Mary Jane jealous. And once Gwen realizes this, she leaves the jazz club, and he gets in a fight with the bouncers. He accidentally hits Mary Jane. That's when he realizes that the black suit has corrupted him. That moment there is my favorite scene in Spider-Man 3. But Peter doesn't realize until it's too late that what he did was wrong. Then he makes it to a church where he removes the symbiote, which is weak to loud noises. Unbeknownst to him, Eddie happens to be at the same church who wants Peter dead. Eddie then sees that Peter is indeed Spider-Man, when the symbiote lands on Eddie, thus turning him into Venom. What I hate about this variation of Venom is how very little screen time he has. I mean, come the fuck on! Tom Hardy had plenty of screen time as Venom, while here in Spider-Man 3, we only ever see Venom in the final act. He was practically shoehorned into the movie at the last minute. It was already fine enough with Sandman and the new Green Goblin, but no! They had to put Venom in there at the last minute for the sole purpose of fan service. And like I said, I prefer Tom Hardy's Venom over Topher Grace any day. So Venom forms an alliance with Sandman, and they capture Mary Jane. Peter goes to Harry for help, but Harry refuses, because he's still bitter about what happened to his father. And then, we get a heartfelt scene between Harry and his butler, who reveals to him the actual truth about Norman's death. So he then teams up with Peter and they take on Sandman and Venom. During the ensuing fight, Harry is impaled by his glider by Venom. But then Peter remembers that the symbiote is weak to the sound of clanging metal. So Peter gets a bunch of metal pipes surrounding Venom, thus creating a wave of sonic attacks. God, I can't say the word Sonic without thinking of my favorite blue hedgehog. So Peter saves Eddie from the symbiote, and he throws a grenade at it. Eddie is addicted to the symbiote's influence, and he gets vaporized. That's when Flint Marko reveals to Peter that he regretted killing Uncle Ben. He was trying to help Uncle Ben, but when his accomplice came with the cash, the gun went off. Everything he had done up to this point was so he could help his daughter. Peter then forgives him and he leaves, and we don't see him again until Spider-Man No Way Home. Peter and Harry reconcile just as Harry dies from his injuries. And sometime after the funeral, Peter goes to MJ's jazz club, and they share one last dance. And that's the last we see of Tobey Maguire before he teams up with Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland in Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm giving Spider-Man 3 a 6 out of 10. This movie is filled to the brim with flaws. While I like seeing this movie portray a darker side to Peter Parker's personality, the story was all over the place, and this movie had too many damn villains. It wasn't a problem in Spider-Man No Way Home, but here in Spider-Man 3, it just didn't work for me. I have the exact same problem with The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I like the musical score and the visual effects, but Spider-Man 3 had so many over-the-top moments that would become Bully Maguire memes for years to come. They even poke fun at it in not only Into the Spider-Verse, but also No Way Home as well. Some people might disagree, but I found Spider-Man 3 to be very enjoyable, and I often relate to what Peter went through in this movie. we can all agree that Spider-Man 3 is not the worst Spider-Man movie out there. That would ultimately go to The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Plans for a fourth Sam Raimi directed Spider-Man movie were scrapped after the movie underperformed at the box office, and thus Andrew Garfield took over as the next Spider-Man. Stay tuned for my upcoming review of The Amazing Spider-Man coming soon. Until then, I'll see you all next time.